Hi everybody, it's Az here from Heel vs Babyface. Now, as we all should know by now, in the next World of Warcraft expansion, Legion artifact weapons are going to play a very important role indeed. Once you get them at the very start of the X-Pack, they will literally be the only weapon you use throughout the course of it. And we've also seen that they start to change and evolve, and you also have the ability to customize their look too. But on top of all of that, your artifact weapon will have its own talent tree, very much like the old style talent trees that we used to see back in Vanilla and Burning Crusade and Wrath, etc, etc. And when you progress through them, you'll be able to apply points and get yourself some new traits and new abilities as well as passives to use for your character. Today I'm going to be looking at the Scepter of Sargeras, which is the Destruction Warlock specs artifact weapon, and see what traits and abilities are on offer here. Now, these, you've got to bear in mind, are completely a work in progress. I think there's going to be a lot of tweaks and changes throughout the course of the alpha and beta. I mean, just by looking at it, you'll see that a lot of the images are duplicated throughout the course of this artifact weapon, so they'll most likely change. And where you start off in the middle with this gold rim spell right here, that spell and this spell, which is actually the end spell for one of the trees, are identical, and I very much doubt that they're going to duplicate a spell. Whereas we can see over here on the left hand side we have an ability all by itself, which is Chaotic Instability, which increases the critical strike damage of Chaos Bolt by 10%, and if you put a second point in, that will move to 15%, and a third point will take it to 20%. I've got a feeling that Chaotic Instability is actually the starting spell that should go here in the center, but of course everything, like I've just said, is subject to change. I'm not going to show you what that spell is right yet, because it is the end one of the trees and it is quite exciting, so we'll go into that later on. So let's just say, for argument's sake, Chaotic Instability does go into the starting area. We've got a couple of options where we can go from here. We can either go to the top one, which is Burning Hunger, and this one increases the chance for Immolate to generate a soul shard by 6% if you've got 1 point in it. That goes to 10% with 2 points, or 13% with 3 points. Or you can choose the path down at the bottom, which actually deals with your Chaos Bolt, and this is the Soul Snatcher ability. Your Chaos Bolt has a 10% chance to refund 2 soul shards, and if you put 2 points in, that becomes 15%, 3 points becomes 20%. Now, do remember that Destruction Warlocks are undergoing a change in Legion. Your Chaos Bolts are no longer going to be using mana. They will be using Soul Shards. Burning Embers are gone. Soul Shards are returning. So obviously, if you can get Soul Shards refunded, the more Soul Shards you have available, the more Chaos Bolts you can fire off. So it does look like both of these abilities are going to be very useful indeed. Moving on, we have again a couple of pathways to choose from. We can either continue across to the right hand side or go down towards the bottom left. So for the purposes of this video, let's just move across to the right, and that's going to take us to Fire and the Flames. Increases the haste effect of Backdraft by X%, and it can take 3 talent points, so that percentage of haste can only increase the more points that you put in there. Backdraft, of course, is affected when you use your Conflagrate spell, so you can batter off those incinerates really, really quickly indeed. Or, if we take the bottom left pathway, this will take us to Eternal Struggle. After casting Life Tap, you take X% less damage for 6 seconds. And again, 3 points can go in there, so it'd be more damage mitigated the more points you put in. Very useful, of course, for PvP. Also very useful if you are progressive raiding or just in desperate need of a little bit of help. But what this also says to us is Destruction Warlocks are getting life tap back. They don't use life tap anymore. It doesn't exist. They just have a really quick mana regeneration. So it looks like that mana regeneration is going. Life tap is coming back in. We're going to have to sacrifice our health to get mana back, and it's going to become a more integral part of how Warlocks used to play. So I haven't got a problem with that at all. So since I'm down at the bottom here, let me just fill up this area. So if I shift across to the left hand side, we come to price of power. Your chaotic energies randomized 3 times and select the highest values. This sounds like some sort of internal slot machine. I doubt you'll actually physically see how this operates, where the spells cast and then 3 values are created based off what it could do, and the highest one is selected as the actual damage to the target. Whether something like this has an internal cooldown, not sure, but it's definitely a rather interesting spell for sure. From there, we can actually complete this tree. If we go down to the bottom, and this is Regard of the Segurai. Your spells have a 20% chance to trigger Doomfire. Now, from what I can gather, Doomfire is going to be a fire-based dot. So it's going to do X amount of damage over X amount of time. And because it's a 20% trigger off any of your spells, that's literally, you cast 5 spells, Doomfire is going to proc. And we've got what? Incinerate, Immolate, Conflagrate, Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, Life Tap. I think we've got Fell Meteor coming into the equation. Even Demonic Circles, Demonic Gateways, they all count towards any spell. They are all spells. So even with an opening, for example, where you'll put your Immolate on, then you'll use 2 Conflagrates, you'll fire off your 6 Incinerates, and then a couple of Chaos Bolts go flying out. Even in that little opening, you're probably going to proc Doomfire 2 times, depending on whether or not, again, there is an internal cooldown. So that's a great little extra bit of damage to that rather bursty opening that we have. Or you could have gone up from Price of Power and go to Master of Disaster. This is kind of like a standard trait here. Increases the damage dealt by Incinerate by 10%. Put a second point in, goes to 15%. Put a third point in, goes to 20%. Now, we've already gone down the right-hand side pathway, which would have taken us to Burning Hunger. So our only option here is just to go straight up. And this will take us to Residual Flames. Increases the periodic damage of Immolate by 20% with 1 point, 30% with 2 points, or 40% with 3 points. So again, very much like Master of Disaster, this is a kind of like classic talent, which is just a steady old DPS increase the more points that you plow in. From there, we just have to go across the top to Devourer of Life. Increases the damage and healing by Drain Life by 30%. 2 points takes it to 40%, 3 points to 50%. Now, this talent I find very interesting indeed, because Drain Life is going to be very important in Affliction, but for Destruction, not so much. Because if you're going to Drain Life, then you are literally in a WTF moment, because you're breaking away from your normal rotation, and something like Drain Life is literally looking to keep you alive. So this very much looks like a utility spell, and that utility theme carries on into the next ability over on the right hand side, which is Plains Walker. Using your demonic gateway will fully heal you. Now, if you're not a Warlock and you read that and start to panic, don't worry, because there is rather a long cooldown on using the demonic gateway. I think it's about 90 seconds at the moment. So yeah, great utility for the Warlock. They go through the gateway, they go up to full health. but then they're on a 90-second CD. And, of course, because all this is subject to change, if it looks like that's going to be way too nice for a Warlock, Blizzard can tweak it to be a longer cooldown, or if they deem that it's not sufficient, they could actually lower the cooldown of Demonic Gateway. And once more, that will take us to another completion of a tree, which is Conflagration of Chaos. Your Conflagrate always crits, and critical strike rating increases its crit damage. So if you are going up to this pathway and into here, it's very simple, stat crit. I have got no problem whatsoever with different specs having a different mastery. Destruction with crit, Demonology with mastery, Affliction with haste. I know it sounds rather simplistic, but to me it works, and it gives each spec a very unique feel. Doesn't matter what class you play, whether it's Paladin, Warlock, Rogue, etc, etc. So that just leaves us with 3 abilities over here, which I have purposely left to last. The first one is very bog standard. It attaches itself to fire and the flames, which we saw earlier. And this one is Fire from the Sky. Rain of Fire deals an additional 10% damage. 2 points in a tree makes it 15, and 3 takes it to 20%. But it's the last 2 that are very, very interesting. So if we were to go up from there, it would take us to Lord of Flames. Your Rain of Fire now also rains Infernals. What? I mean, literally, what? This one here poses so many different questions, but so a couple of pertinent ones are, number one, I think, this is not a guarantee, but I think Rain of Fire is going back to a channeled spell in Legion. So how many Infernals, regardless of whether it's a channel or it's staying in its current format as a cast, how many Infernals will proc during the course of the Rain of Fire? And number two, how long will these Infernals stay for? I mean, are they just literally going to do a couple of hits and die? Or are they going to stay for 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds? That's really interesting indeed. Because, I mean, to me, that just like screams you'd just be AoEing all over the place, really, wouldn't you? If you've got these Infernals just coming in left, right, and centre. So this is a spell that I really have to see, or this is an ability that I really have to see in action to really grasp how it's going to work. But it sounds ridiculously exciting. And then that takes us finally to the end of this tree, and this is called Stuff of the Universe. I think that name will probably get a bit of a tweak, but listen to this. Your spells can punch holes in the walls of time and space, opening beneficial portals. And again, this leaves quite a few things to the imagination, because, yeah, sure, we summon in demons. So if these portals appear, this could theoretically mean demons are coming through the portals to aid us in battle. But then you have another question. If that is the case, what are the demons going to be? Is it just going to be a bog standard imp? Or is it going to be a randomized demon that could actually come out and help? And then you have to also look at it from another angle. You know, portals, they kind of work defensively as well as offensively when it comes to a Warlock, because we have things like Demonic Circle. We have things like Demonic Gateway. They are portal-based spells and abilities too. So are these holes and portals going to allow us to travel through them to other locations? So again, it's something that you really have to see in action to grasp how it's going to fully operate. But again, sounds ridiculously exciting. And then that only leaves 2 little things at the top here. You notice there's a couple of holes. One on the left is a green one. This is where a Fel relic will come into your weapon, and the one on the right is where a Fire relic will come into your weapon. That's no doubt going to have something to do with the evolution of what the Scepter of Sargeras will look like. But yeah, just from that little look at the spells and abilities, you can already get to some sort of understanding about what they're trying to achieve with the different branches, these three major sort of areas that you could go to with this scepter. I mean, you've got the kind of utility at the top with some bursty crit, and then down at the bottom you have some sort of like randomized and so again the kind of damage mitigations that you get from the eternal struggle and such, in regard to the Sagari, putting an additional dot on the target. And then over on the right hand side you've got this kind of crazy AoE sort of thing going on with the portals and the infernals and the rain of fire. So they do have their distinctive kind of feels to them, and therefore will give you options about how you want to construct your demonology Warlock. But yeah, a nice little look, very kind of interesting, very exciting, and very much looking forward to getting my hands on this artifact and seeing exactly where we can go with it. So I'd love to hear what you guys and gals have got to say in the comment section down below, and I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links are in the description down below, and I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye.